this right. Good morning, everybody. First off, let me say it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be in the company of fellow investor relation professionals, as well as other management and finance professionals today. We are proud to be associated with the IR Magazine Awards and Forum in India for the second year in a row. I would like to first of all thank the IR Magazine team for facilitating as well as organizing this event. So I have been given the task to set the agenda and tone for the day. Let me give a short recap as to how the year has gone by and also what we have in store for us ahead on an economic point of view as well as capital markets and investor relations. So last month, a young and aspirational India voted Narendra Modi as its premier for a second straight term, reinstating their confidence on his idea for a better India and the need for change. The BJP-led NDA alliance won with a full majority, ending the coalition-led era and paving the way for decisive reforms. In the past term, the Modi government pledged a slew of bold reforms and programs and also placed emphasis on reducing corruption and improving governance. Although the effectiveness of these programs can be debated, we cannot take away credit from the Modi government for trying. Unfortunately, some of the reforms resulted in short-term afflictions, but it was unanimously agreed that there will be long-term gains. Demonetization and GST created a knee-jerk reaction in the economy, resulting in rising unemployment and deterring economic growth. The agrarian crisis, coupled with the banking crisis and poor investment cycle, worsened the situation, which started to have a trickle effect on the consumption economy that had been defying gravity all this time. If the past 5 years have been any indication of what lies ahead, it is safe to assume that the wave of reforms will not only continue, but is expected to be fast-tracked in the absence of coalition-led policy paralysis. India is expected to become one of the world's largest economies in the coming decade. But to make this happen, Modi has a Herculean task ahead, and he must clearly take counter-cycle measures. While cyclical challenges can be addressed through short-term measures, the need of the hour is to address the structural challenges plaguing the Indian economy. Investments in infrastructure growth and further liberalization of foreign direct investment norms will remain a priority to pave the way for Modi's Make in India dream come true and achieve its top 50 rank in the ease of doing business list. Continued focus will be on rural India and schemes like raising the minimum support prices and working on long-term solutions of assuring remunerative returns to farmers and to boost their rural income. There also has to be an increased focus on revitalizing the banking sector by accelerating the bankruptcy process and ending bad loan provisioning in banks, by cutting interest rates and injecting liquidity back into the system to jumpstart investments and increase employment, which will ultimately improve consumer spending. Modi has laid the foundation in his first tenure. The second tenure should be more of execution, and assuming that everything goes as planned, not only banks and capital goods, but other sectors also could report better earnings. The stock markets have performed well under Modi's first tenure. However, only sustainable future earnings growth can continue a similar performance. Not only has there been an increased emphasis on reducing corruption and improving governance in the political and social environment in India, but also on improving these on the corporate and economic environment. In April 2019, under the recommendations of the Kotak Committee for Improving Corporate Governance Standards in India, new ESG norms have been incorporated. ESG work is too critical today to ignore. Simply put, ESG investing is an evolution of responsible investing, and it is not just an executionary focus, but it is integrated with fundamental factors to produce long-term value creation, something that will be discussed later on today as well. One can argue that responsible investing is just a fad, but a closer look shows a different picture, and there is strong evidence that high corporate ESG standards and good stock returns correlate. And although corporates in India are only recently waking up to ESG, and the mature markets of US and Europe have seen dramatic re-rating in top-ranked ESG stocks. The last decade has seen significant developments in the ESG investing landscape globally. Over $20 trillion of assets use the ESG criteria when it comes to investing. It is reported that 85% of S&P 500 companies are now reporting on their ESG and sustainability performance in some way or the other. ESG investing in Asia, not just India, has been comparatively slow on account of traditional mindsets that separate business and social activities. India is perceived to have a plethora of promoter-run companies. Their adherence to corporate governance is often doubted and brought down to only a checklist to fulfill SEBI norms and not considered a fiduciary responsibility. Though the scenario is changing from family-run businesses to professionally managed boards, the promoter Raj is a unique reality of India and often discredited by financial institutions. This puts further thrust on ESG standards in India as the approach is understood to mitigate exposure to faulty governance and social risks. Strong focus on ESG by corporates will also enhance productivity and reputation and reduce environmental and social risk, which in turn will create further shareholder value. IR teams today are well aware that ESG-focused investments are rising in India. This is evident by the recent launch of the ESG fund by Avendus Capital, and also funds like Kotak Asset Management and SBI Mutual Fund becoming signatories of the UN Principles of Responsible Investment. And we will have the pleasure of hearing from some of these delegates later on today as well. IR as a function now has the added responsibility to align the management and board's focus on ESG and also to communicate the same to the investor community. With these shifts in the political and economical landscapes and the capital market on the other hand, investor relation officers have an important role to play in such volatile times. Like any other market, the financial market does not only run on money, but on trust as well. As a consequence, creating strong relationships and building trust becomes most critical function of any IRO. IR is relatively easy to do in good times, but the bigger challenge is to be effective in demanding situations where investors are looking for answers and strategies of how the company will overcome difficulties. A consistent tone in communication through candidness is what investors are expecting out of us today. Good investor relations should be able to hold up a mirror to the business itself and also be able to provide feedback to the management team so they understand how their actions are being perceived by the outside world. Shareholders today are demanding an active IR rather than the mandated IR, which was the domain of company secretaries. So I'd like to conclude by saying that although investor relations has gained significant focus in India, the function is far from reaching its potential when compared to global markets. But just like India is on the path to reaching new heights, investor relations as a function too will strive in India. Thank you.